Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and another tutorial. Today I am pleased to introduce you to the new Tobi Stylx bag, the Kiara Crossbody bag. This is a really unique bag. It is two bags in one. You can see here. Let me show you some of the features of it. So in the pattern, it does call for 2 turn or flip locks. I only had one, so on the back I did a magnetic snap, and actually it looks really good even just as a magnetic snap. That's a really cool alteration that you could do. Both pouches are the same. They have a interior zipper pocket. Same with this side. Whoops. And another awesome feature of this is there's like these 2 hidden slip pockets in behind each of the pouches, like that. It comes in 2 sizes. This one here is the small size. It's very small. What did I use in this bag? I can tell you right now, I did not have any grommets the size that was in the pattern, and I made the mistake of using these screw-in grommets, which were way too big for the small size. The grommet should actually be more sitting right here and here. So definitely make sure you use the size grommet that she specifies in the pattern. Another real cool thing about this, now this chain isn't the chain meant to be with this purse. I did not have a chain here and it hasn't come in yet, so I just used a chain that had these little clips on them for now, just to show you this amazing feature of this bag. So the chain in the pattern, of course, is longer than this chain, but what this does is, as you can see right now, I have it as 2 handles, so it's kind of like a handbag here. Longer chain would make it a shoulder bag, but if you wanted to make it a crossbody bag, all you have to do is pull on that chain and it makes it longer, and then you have your crossbody or shoulder bag. It's kind of really cool. If you didn't want a chain, you could definitely use gate rings and attach straps if you wanted to, or even if you want to use a chain with this, you know how you can get those little side little things here you can clamp onto the vinyl that have the little D-ring that you can snip them to. There's just so many possibilities you can do with this. Hey, look, there's Coco. Interfacings in this bag. It calls for Deckable Lite. I used EB Fuse Heavy instead of Deckable Lite. I'm finding it a really good substitute. In my experimentation, if you have a thicker vinyl, you only really need one layer of EB Fuse Heavy to kind of become the same as Deckable Lite. If it's a lighter one, I would use 2 layers. This one is a lighter one. I only used the 1 layer, and I wish that I had used 2 layers. It still turned out great. So, yeah, so that is actually it for interfacing, is a little bit of Deckable Lite or EB Fuse Heavy. All my hardware is from Emmaline. Bags, my zippers and zipper pulls are from Blue Cala. This fabric here, this is a Riley Blake fabric. I do not remember what it is called, but it was part of that whole rose gold series. This rose gold metallic vinyl is from Galaxy Kustoms. What else to say about this bag? I do a little bit of a hack here. So this middle section here that separates the 2 pouches, in the pattern, the instructions, there's 2 kinds of instructions for raw edges where you could go ahead and edge paint that. I didn't have time to edge paint it. There's also instructions on how you can do it, sewing it and then turning it out through the bottom. You can definitely do it that way. I show you a different way that I came up with in the pattern, so you will see that when we get going, which I found it super easy to do that, to have no raw edges. So you will see when we get to that point in the video what I did there as my hack. What else? So again, this is called, I don't remember if I told you, it's called the Kiara Bag. Another wonderful pattern by Tobi Stylx. Thank you so much, Tobi, for allowing me to make this tutorial. And that's enough chatter. How about we get to making this bag? You're going to need some number 5 zipper tape, 2 turn locks. I am going to use a turn lock and a magnetic snap, 2 number 5 zipper pulls, and 2 grommets, and some rivets. Okay, so I am doing my overlay method. So I got my zipper overlays here. my 4 zipper pocket lining pieces backed with EB Fuse Lite, my back panels, 2 exteriors with EB Fuse Heavy outside of the seam allowances, and 4 lining panels. Your flat pieces, 2 exterior backed with your stabilizer outside of the seam allowances, and 2 lining panels for that. 4 gusset pieces, 2 exteriors with EB Fuse Heavy outside of the seam allowances, and your 2 lining gusset pieces. Your piece Bs, 2 sets mirrored to one another. Your back connector panels, 2 of those. 2 pieces of EB Fuse Heavy or Deckable Lite for later. 2 front middle panels. And some chain. Okay, so we're going to start with doing our panels. So you're going to take your side panels, put it right sides together with the middle panel. And then you're going to take this to the machine and sew it with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, and now we are going to push the seam towards that side panel and then top stitch through the side panel to hold it into place. Go ahead and repeat with the other side like we've done here. Now I'm going to take my stabilizer and just fuse it to the back of these pieces. Now we need to place our thumb lock here. So I'm just using my pattern piece as a guide and making a mark where I will be installing it. And then go ahead and install the male part of your thumb lock or turn lock as per your manufacturer's instructions. I will be back in mine with a piece of scrap of Peltex just for a little extra security. Okay, so that is done. I'm also going to take a little bit of duct tape just to put on the back of those prongs to make sure those prongs aren't going to rub on our fabrics. Okay, so now I have my connector piece and my other back panel. And I'm going to center this and hold it with some alligator clips like so. These are right sides together. So again, this is our back panel and our connector panel. And then I'm going to take my back panel guide piece from the pattern, center it best I can, and I'm going to trace it onto the back of our back panel. Okay, so we're not going to sew along this top, but we are going to sew like little triangles here, and this is going to create our hidden slip pockets. So now I'm going to take this to the machine. I'm going to just sew up here, across here, all the way down and around the triangle again. Okay, so now what we want to do is take this connector piece and we kind of want to fold it out of the way because we're going to do some more sewing. I'm just using some painter's tape here because it doesn't leave a sticky residue, and just going to tape those out of the way. I got to go chase my paint roll because it rolled off the table, and then I will go and tape the rest of this back
away from the edges. Okay, so now let's prep our flap pieces. So take your flap exterior piece and your flap lining piece, put them right sides together, matching up the raw edges. Now we're going to leave the top open, but we're going to sew down the rest of it with 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, and then go ahead and turn this right side out. Pushing out all of those seams, I'm actually going to take this to my iron on the fabric side and give it a really quick press, being careful not to touch my vinyl. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and top stitch around the sides that we had just sewn. Okay, so this is what we have here. Now we want to attach the flaps. We're going to take this right sides together, centered along the top. And sew across here with 1/4 inch seam allowance. Again, making sure you're not catching that back connector piece. You should have that taped out of the way. Okay, so now I'm going to find the centers of both the top and the bottom of my main panel here. And then I'm going to take my gusset piece, fold it in half, and find my centers. Match up that center piece, right sides together at the bottom of the front main panel. A few clips in the bottom. Bring the sides up to match up at the top. Same with the other side. And now we can evenly distribute the fabric the rest of the way around. When you get to the corners and it doesn't look like they're going to fit, just on the gusset piece, put a few little snips into that corner to help spread the fabric around that curve. Do the same with the other corner. And then we're going to take this to the machine and sew all the way around here with 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I have my stiletto that's going to help me hold things in place around that curve. And as I'm using vinyl, I want to take some of the struts. I can see here my stitches are a little bit stressed, so I'm going to go ahead and within 1/8 inch seam allowance into the seam we just sewn, I'm just going to go ahead and sew another line of stitching just to take some stress off of those stitches. So that's in the seam allowances. Okay, so now that's done. I've taken my pinking shears and I have just cut notches around the corner parts. Now I'm going to take the back panel that we had done with the connector piece on and attach it to the gusset in the exact same manner. So right sides together. Again, making sure that that connector piece is still tucked out of the way. You do not want to get that into those seam allowances. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sew along here with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And again, doing that second row of stitching as well, just to take some of the stress off of those seams. Okay, so that's one of our exteriors done. Once I've gone around with that second row, don't always have to go around with the second row. I kind of take it depending on the vinyl, just double check it. If it looks like your seams are stressed, go ahead and do the extra securing with another line. Okay, so we're going to do our lining in pretty much the same way. I've gone ahead and I've done my typical overlay here. You want to make sure your zipper pocket is open. I do have a class down below on how to do that. Okay, so again, centers, match up your centers and your lining gusset pieces. This is going to go together very similar, but with a few differences. So go ahead and pin it in place. Okay, so what we're going to do is at the top here, to about here, we're going to go down with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then once we hit that 1/4 inch, we're going to branch out to 3/8 inch seam allowance. And this is just going to make it so our linings do not sag in the bottom of the bag, but keeping the top of the lining the same circumference around that it will still fit in the exterior. So when we get to the other side, you will branch out again or branch into that 1/4 inch seam allowance again. So I've done the 1/4 inch. Now I am branching out to 3/8 inch all the way down and around. And when I hit about here, I'm going to go back down to a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so we're going to do the other side in a similar fashion, except for we are going to leave an opening in the bottom of the bag for turning. So go ahead and clip this in place. Okay, so we are going to leave about a 7-inch opening if you're doing the small and a 10-inch opening if you are doing the large size. And we're going to start here again with a 1/4 inch. Branch out to 3/8, starting and stopping at those lines we drew at the bottom for the opening, hopping over up to here with 3/8, and then working back to a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So again, 1/4 inch to about here. Then I'm branching out to 3/8 inch. Coming to that opening line, I'm going to do a few back stitches, cut my thread, jump over to the other line, couple back stitches. We're still at 3/8 inch seam allowance. And then right about here, we're going to go back down to a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And that leaves us with an opening in the bottom of the bag. Okay, so turn your exterior piece right side out. Okay, you're going to still make sure that back connector piece is taped down and out of the way. Okay, make sure your flap is down and out of the way as well. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the exterior and put it inside the lining, right sides together. Make sure you have your pocket where you want it to be. I like mine at the back of the bag, so I'm making sure I'm orientating it correctly. Stuff the exterior right sides together into the lining. I like to match up these 4 seams first. So the 4 side seams. I'm just nesting my seams together to reduce some of the bulk. Clipping them in place. Same with the other side. And then evenly distribute the fabric the rest of the way, clipping all the way around. Okay, so now I'm going to take this to the machine. If I was on my flatbed, I would go ahead and I would stitch inside here with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Or if you have a free arm or a cylinder arm like me, you can do it exactly like I'm going to show you here. So again, we're doing this with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around. Okay, so now you're going to pull this right side out through the bottom of the bag and the opening in the lining. It turns very easy. Push out all your seams good. Stuff the lining inside. And I'm just going to roll these seams for top stitching in between my fingers. Just give them a good finger press. You will not be able to do this on the flap side, but that's okay. Just make sure you have your lining tucked in nice and good. And then we're going to go ahead and top stitch this. Okay, so that's all done. So I'm going to pull out my zipper pocket lining, reach in through the opening in that pocket to grab the opening in the lining, pull it through the pocket so we can stitch that opening shut. This makes it so we don't have that ridge at the bottom of the bag. Okay. Go ahead and sew this with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Stuff the lining back into the bag. And go ahead and close up that zipper pocket. That is the front side done. I went ahead and installed my female part of my turn lock. You're going to go ahead and do the exact same thing with the other pouch for the other side of the bag. I decided to do a magnetic snap, and I have put my nameplate on the back. Now on the back of one of mine, I have put some Peltex here only because I'm using screw-in grommets, which I need the thickness for them to stick. So if you're doing it the pattern, you go ahead and you would just sew these raw edges together. I don't want raw edges, so I'm going to go along this back connector panel and draw a 1/2 inch line all the way around. This could have been easier to do prior to sewing these on, but I wasn't sure. I didn't know I was going to do it this way at that point in time. So this is me winging it. Okay, so now I'm going to take some double-sided tape and fold into that 1/2 inch line. So I'm folding this over pretty much 1/4 of an inch along the top first. So this is a Brandy way of doing this. There is another way to have no raw edges in the pattern that you could follow as well if you didn't want to use the double-sided tape. So I'm putting double-sided tape all along that line. Pulling my backing off. Now I'm not doing the corners right away. I'm going to do the 3 straight sides folding into that 1/2 inch line. I'm going to use clips because I don't trust my double-sided tape to stay stuck down. Again, if you don't want to use double-sided tape, you can definitely use clips here instead. Do the same with the straight edge along the bottom. And then we're going to work the corners because you want them to be as round as they possibly can be. So I'm going to go ahead and put little just scant 1/4 of an inch snips all around that corner. And from that center of that corner first, I'm going to fold into that line and then work the rest of the curve around on each side of that center part. And same with the other side. Again, you could definitely sew these on with a raw edge. If you want to do some edge painting, go right ahead, or if you don't mind that raw edge. Okay, and go ahead and do the exact same thing with the other panel, like so. So now we are going to put these wrong sides together like this, so our 2 pouches are opposite one another, and I'm going to match up those folded edges nicely on both sets. Use lots of clips to hold it in place. You know me, I love my clips. So that is done, and we're going to go ahead and we are going to top stitch these together with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so that is all done. All that's left to do now is to go ahead and install your grommets. Again, my placement is weird because I use really huge grommets. Then once that is done, you can see we have our 2 hidden slip pockets, and all that's left to do is install the chain. And we're done.
All right, that's it. That's all. So it is like making 2 bags in one. Again, you can probably see why I wish I had moved my grommets out here. Again, I always keep my mistakes in the videos. So yes, definitely make sure you use smaller grommets out to here because it was a real pain in the butt to put these in here. Yeah, again, thank you, Tobi, for another amazing pattern. If you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. If you'd like to support my channel further, you can buy me coffee. That link is down below. And I also have information down below as to how you can join my sew along classes on the membership side. Yeah, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Until the next time, I'll see you later. Bye.